Joining us to discuss climate apartheid and the media's failure to cover it properly is independent journalist Michelle García. Thank you so much for joining us, Michelle.
It's great to be here.
You wrote an article. Hi. So last year you wrote this article for The Nation that explored, you really took the media to task, I'll say, about how the media isn't actually reporting on the climate crisis properly, and that they should be reporting on this through an equitable lens. After seeing the devastation of the heat dome event this summer and Hurricane Ida last month, tell us, what you think about how the media is doing as it covers all of the various things that we're seeing, that boil down, frankly, to climate change.
Right. I think it's definitely a mixed situation. There's so much more attention being paid to the climate crisis now than ever before, without a doubt. I mean, just a few years ago, it was this obscure topic. And at the same time, what should be concerning to us, all of us, is there are some real lessons learned from issues of racial justice, migration, gender, that should inform our understanding of climate. And yet they still are seen as distinct, right? So on the one hand, there's this discussion of the politics of it, right? The political jockeying and what's happening in Washington. Of course, important in terms of what's going to happen regarding legislation and in Scotland at the International Gathering on Climate Change. At the same time, I'm really concerned about the news that we see about law enforcement officers, agencies across the country purchasing military-grade equipment in the name of preparing for climate catastrophes and then using it against protesters for racial justice. I'm concerned about...
Hold up. Back up. Say more about that. You're seeing police precincts around this country getting tanks claiming they're trying to deal with climate? Like, break that down for us. What's happening?
So I think that, so the Huffington Post just came out with a really important story on this, and I think it's a perfect example of this situation, and it's not unique. In that, my report that you mentioned, the term climate apartheid was actually coined by a UN report a couple of years ago. And what they predicted was upheaval, disparities, but also the strong arm of government to crack down on social unrest that may arise from climate issues or migration. We're seeing that right now. Number one, let's start with what I just mentioned in terms of the Huffington Post. Great article about law enforcement, sheriffs, police, not just one, but across the country, purchasing in the name of preparing for climate disasters, military-grade equipment, and then using it to police racial justice protests. We see the same issue about that sort of militarization. I was just in Del Rio a couple of weeks ago. We all saw the images in Del Rio with the Haitian migrants. And as just disgusting and alarming and really chilling as the images of Border Patrol agents on horseback were, what you couldn't see in that image, but it sort of indicated this, was there was a huge, massive military law enforcement outpouring response to the migrant presence of Haitians. There were 700 state troopers. There was the Coast Guard. There were over 1,000 DHS agents and officers. What we need to be asking ourselves is this what is being a template for going into the future in terms of dealing with the fallout from climate change in a law enforcement heavy, militarized way? And in my piece, what I mention is, and really what I try to drill down on, is if we don't get a handle on the root causes of the disasters and the issues and who's responsible, then we in the media become vulnerable to becoming agents of manipulation, of perpetuating a narrative created by people in power.
That is fascinating. And as I'm listening to you describe these scenes, and I hadn't quite put it together in that way, so thank you for that. I am picturing, Parable of the Sower. Author Octavia Butler wrote about this. She kind of predicted that we would end up in this place where climate disaster, like you mentioned, Haiti and the various earthquakes that have happened there, and people not having a place to go and are essentially migrating, trying to figure it out, and then getting to a border and being met by military presence that's trying to stomp down the migration and militarizing around that, and then treating people as if they are, horrible humans and somehow supposed to be policed, as opposed to the fact that they're migrating because they're suffering. And I, thank you for spelling it out that way when you talk about climate apartheid and what that means. And I hear you on the media being complicit in not depicting the right story and not telling the right story. And I wonder, how are you, right? Because you're an independent journalist, but give us some tips. How should the media be covering climate crisis and doing better?
I think that as we have seen more coverage, we've also seen better coverage and a varied sense of coverage. So I think back to Hurricane Katrina. That should have been a sort of early alarm. And I was in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. And some of your viewers may remember that there was a moment where people of New Orleans tried to flee New Orleans and go to St. Bernard Parish. And they were stopped at the bridge, and there was a confrontation. So when we're talking about people fleeing climate disasters, it is on all kinds of scales, and Hurricane Katrina was an early alarm. And yet there was a lot of hand-wringing back then about racial inequities, about racial dynamics, racial injustice. And I remember then talking to scientists who were predicting we're going to see stronger hurricanes. We're going to see them in places we hadn't seen them before. We're going to see them in places like New York hitting really hard. And then you have Sandy, and then you have, as you mentioned, Ida. So I think what I would like to see is a sort of return to these moments like Hurricane Katrina and really, or Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, for example, and really scrutinize how were those stories told? What happened to those people who had to flee, like New Orleans ended up in Houston, Hurricane Harvey, right?
Yeah.
What happened to people who came in and bought out their houses and the schools that were changed to charter schools? I mean, I think we're in a moment
how those
where
communities shifted. Yeah.
Exactly. And it can show us the way forward, what we need to be watching out for. In my piece, the one you mentioned for The Nation, I do that. I try to do that by connecting the climate crisis to what we saw with the pandemic. And I think there were also.
Hold on, I want to get to that, but I got to take a quick break.
Yeah, okay.
I got to take a quick break, but I want you to hold that thought because, Michelle, you're coming back with me, and I want to get into that analysis that you made. Michelle García and I are going to talk about solutions to climate apartheid and hear more about the connection she's making when we come back on Amplified. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about the media's role in the climate crisis and how it disproportionately affects people of color. But how can we actually fix this problem of the way the media is covering it? Independent journalist Michelle García is still with us to answer this question. And before we dipped out, Michelle, you were starting to go into the article that you wrote for The Nation, where you offered a solution to the problem, saying, and I want to quote you here, "The pain and consequences of racial injustice can be heard in neighborhoods ravaged by the coronavirus. The thousands of asylum seekers waiting at the border, in the public outcry over police shootings of Black Americans, and amid the backlash to America's largely white newsrooms, journalists should endeavor to reveal how structural racism, indifference, and government policies can make catastrophes more lethal for some than for others. So it sounds like what you were saying there is that this is really an issue of diversifying newsrooms. That comes into play, no?
I think that in that piece, I actually quoted a report from the Kerner Commission that was published in 1968 after the riots. And in it, they reported that the media for too long has reported through the eyes of whites for a white audience. So this was an issue of perspective and worldview. And in my piece, I argue that we saw this in the media reckoning following the murder of George Floyd. The LA Times publishing a mea culpa saying, we for too long have published as if we were reporting for a white community when our city is Black, Latino, Asian. What we have to reckon with, because people will say, we're going to hire, we're going to diversify, we're going to have some new names and faces. What are we going to do to dismantle a media perspective that is established to create and perpetuate a worldview that is tailored to a white upper middle class audience? Because that is the challenge. And as long as our stories are told through that lens, how are we going to have a true racial democracy, media democracy in our country if we are still contending with the issues that were set forth in 1968 and that we were still talking about last year? So while I'm all for, of course, representation and getting integration in our newsrooms, it is also about whose lens do we tell our stories through?
Yeah. You know, we did a whole piece around the Kerner Commission and its report, and it's interesting how so much of that is relevant today. To your point about so much of this, the media coverage being through a white gaze, I'm reminded that today is Latina Equal Pay Day. But like everything in this country, women and people of color, we trail behind white men, and we don't even always talk about the issues that are impacting us. And so I wonder, the Institute for Women's Policy Research says that Latinas have the lowest earnings of any major race or ethnicity and gender group. And I wonder, as you make these intricate connections around, you know, climate, et cetera, how do you think that the gender and racial pay gap further exacerbates the climate crisis and the connection points there?
Absolutely. I think that we saw this, again, the pandemic gave us a really clear view into this. Remember how everybody was talking about work from home and I was going to, bake sourdough bread and, having all of the Zoom meetings. Well, guess what? That wasn't everybody. And we already knew before the lockdown in March that it was about double the number of percent of white workers to Black and Latinos could work from home, meaning that the people who were filling those Amazon orders, filling those grocery orders, going to work were by and large Latinas, Black women. And so when you have that kind of disparity, it creates a sort of distorted sense as to who's being affected, how they're being affected, and how when the pandemic is over. And I think what really alarmed me with the pandemic that I think really connects to climate crisis is in the same way that I was in New York at the time last year at the same, you might have heard, everybody knew that New Yorkers, like other people, were at our windows clapping and clamoring for essential workers every night at 7 p.m., right? There was a celebration of essential workers. Okay, well, at the same way that overnight people whose work had been largely marginalized, overlooked, ignored, and taken for granted could become the superheroes of our time. In the same way, because of the needs of certain people, those same people can overnight become a threat. And if you want to see how that plays out, look at what happened in Del Rio, right? People who are seeking asylum
right. I mean, that is,
suddenly are deemed a threat.
Yeah.
So you have Central Americans had been under that same bridge weeks before. There had been major hurricanes. And we know these hurricanes are worsening because of climate crisis, of which the U.S. has been a prime contributor.
Well, thank you, Michelle, for drawing these connections for us. This has been so illuminating. We appreciate you coming on Amplified and look forward to continuing to follow your work. Independent journalist Michelle García, thank you so much.